At a cost of millions of dollars, the Grand Strand's beaches are scheduled for a renourishment project within the next 2 years. But some local leaders say we need some of that project even sooner. The renourishment would happen in 3 phases, first on the South Strand in 2017. Then 2 more phases are slated to cover the Central and North Strand in 2018. The phases have a budget of up to $24 million each, and local leaders say they all need to be done sooner rather than later. But some scientists have reservations about what we're really getting for that investment. News 13's Brandon Herring investigates.
Renourishment isn't a word you'll find in the dictionary, but at the beach it's a word so widely used now it often goes without saying that renourishment is the process of putting sand back onto the beach after erosion. The Grand Strand's first major renourishment project came after Hurricane Hugo in 1989. Since then, the beach has actually widened thanks to some additional renourishment paired with a relatively slow erosion rate in the Grand Strand.
These last 2 years of storms have really kind of bit into that a good bit, but there's still a good bit more sand here than there was before the first renourishment, large-scale renourishment project back in the 90s.
Dr. Paul Gaze is a coastal oceanographer who spent years studying the Grand Strand shore. He says the push for a renourishment earlier than the planned 2018 shows the last one didn't last as long as expected.
Renourishment really is kind of a midterm solution to a long-term problem.
For example, Hunting Island, South Carolina, and Topsail Beach, North Carolina, are places renourishment hasn't kept erosion at bay. Gaze certainly doesn't see erosion threatening many buildings along the Grand Strand in the near future, but it is a long-term concern as measurements show the ocean level rising.
It's coming up about, this much a year. On an average basis is not a heck of a lot when you think about it, but it adds up.
But consider the south end of Garden City as another example. During high tide, there is no beach here because the water goes all the way to the seawalls. And as the ocean rises gradually over time and washes away more and more sand, the buildings aren't moving back. A beach like this certainly won't attract many tourists. And Gaze fears in the next 50 to 100 years, even certain low-lying areas that get a renourishment may see similar results. He says with climate change leading to more frequent big storms, renourishments could lose more and more ground and need to be done more and more often in those areas.
Money and resources are not infinite, so it starts to challenge, can we do this everywhere? And if we will do that, then how are we going to pay for it? Your options is you defend the beach, renourishment, or you allow the beach to be where it wants to be and you keep development out of the way.
But that's a hard sell to U.S. Representative Tom Rice, who says he'll be advocating to ensure federal money stays on track for another renourishment.
Once things are developed, you tend to want to protect them.
Based on what he's seen, Rice feels strongly that renourishments have protected the Grand Strand's cash cow.
To say that it's not sustainable, it certainly has been sustainable since Hugo.
As an example, he points to the sand fences put up after Hugo that were only recently uncovered during Matthew. He feels it's money well spent if tens of millions of dollars pay for renourishments that last for years, when just a single year of tourism produces hundreds of millions of dollars.
If it lasts 10 years or if it lasts 8 years, that is an incredible investment. Renourishment pays for itself 1,000-fold. In terms of tax revenues, in terms of job creation, in terms of quality of life.
Still, Gaze worries it may become unreasonable to continue pouring sand and money into vulnerable, low-lying areas.
Clearly, there's places that, for any number of reasons, we're going to want to put more effort in defending. But there may be places that we should be seriously thinking, should we be forcing ourselves to defend these areas, knowing how vulnerable they are and knowing how expensive it is now and going to be.
He believes government leaders should consider now if every part of the Grand Strand is worth that perpetual investment. In Garden City, Brandon Herring, News 13.
South Carolina does have some policies in place that prevent development in certain beachfront areas. To read more about the idea of moving development away from the shore, look for this story at WBTW.com.